What do you have intentions later on to kind of expose them a little bit more? And if you do, what are you hoping that looks like as they grow up?
Yeah, I'd love to kind of get them more involved in the business, and not like in any way to kind of push them down that road if that's not the road that they want to go about, but mostly just so that they kind of understand the power of real estate, you know, and the options that are available to them. Like a lot of people just don't know, like, oh, I can be a part of, acquiring apartment complexes or single family or whatever kind of real estate it is. Understand the pros and cons of things. And so, one example recently, so this was actually before I hired my assistant, but I think it's probably still important that I allow her to do it on occasion, is I was working on like a newsletter or an investor report or something, and inside I use Active Campaign and to send stuff out. And so I was working on something. My daughter kind of walked by, and surprisingly, she was interested, right? Like most times I'll be behind a computer, it's like, whatever. But she was kind of like, what are you working on and stuff? And so I kind of showed her how I created this and, pulled pictures in and typed some stuff here. And she asked if she could help. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And so I kind of like I was showing her how to use the Active Campaign software and, how to do different things. And she was really enjoying it. Right. And so I think that was kind of cool for me, because a lot of times, when they see us on the phone or all this kind of stuff, they're like, real estate's kind of boring, And so whenever she's excited about something else about it, it's an opportunity just to kind of bring them in to the loop to see different aspects of it, if you will. And even like this, back in early summer, I was speaking at a conference, a 3-day conference down in Nashville, and the family went with me down there. And I didn't make the kids sit through 3 days of real estate presentations, but they did come in, when I was speaking and stuff. And they also kind of stayed in the room. My wife and the kids stayed in the room for a couple of more like motivational speakers, if you will, not necessarily real estate specific. But at one point in time, my son started to get a little antsy. So my wife was going to take him. I asked my daughter, do you want to go or stay? And she's like, no, I want to stay, And so that kind of, made me a little warm inside, And so things like that, the Active Campaign, like exposing them, like it was kind of intentional for them to hear some of those motivational speakers and
for sure,
see that there's some other stuff around the real estate other than, the boring sitting behind the computer thing. So like I said, I don't want to push them into anything, but like open up those opportunities, and I, kind of see when they do get excited about something, to see, how they could maybe, where they're a good fit or what they're interested in.
Yeah. For me, I'm a huge why guy, and I've trained my kids to ask why all the time as well. Like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you do this? So I've done what I can. And I know I could do better, but to show them the why behind why daddy sits behind this computer all the daggum time, right? And, I've brought them to different properties that we own, talk to them about the work that we're doing and what, having that exposure so they understand that why. I need to do a better job of reminding them, so that they can have that connection as to just what, what kind of impact we're able to have in the world and, what we're doing. And, same thing, similar to, we've got ADPI, we've got our conference at the time of this recording next week. And I'm, by the time this comes out, it'll be already months ago. So it would have already been a very successful, exciting conference. But now next week, we've got our conference. I'm bringing the kids with. They get to go and see what the company's doing and how many people get to be impacted by what we're doing and hear the stories and be involved. And I'm like, it excites me that I get to expose them to that sort of thing. And I just hope that I don't, I don't, oversaturate them with some stuff, and make them want to run away from it, right? Because I think we've all seen some things as kids that we run away from that we never want to have happen as adults, and then I don't want that to be the case here. So it's finding that balance, but also it's extremely important to me to make sure that they understand business and what we're doing. And again, I don't care if they follow this. I don't care if they join the military. I don't care if they whatever it is they want to do, but I want them to be exposed to as much as I can. So it's and
I think
it is a balance.
It's kind of hard. Yeah, it's kind of I mean, just like we were talking about earlier with our parents and the work and things like that. It's like, especially like when I was living in England, it was really difficult because I couldn't like physically take them to our properties or whatever. Yeah. So a lot of it is like just talking or trying to explain or whatever. But now that we're back here and it still takes some effort. It's 3.5 hours, to 3.5, 4 hours to a lot of our our properties and stuff from where we live to Tulsa. And so, it has to be kind of planned out to go down there, in about 3 weeks or so, they're going to go down there with me for another weekend. Mm-hmm. And so you have to kind of plan that out to be able to take them or to go to conferences and things like that. But I think it's important for them to have that exposure, whether it's something that they, take on and run with early on after school, or, and if not, maybe they, like you said, they go do something else. But I think it'll be in the back of their mind, right? They'll always, at least, will been have exposed and know that it's an opportunity, and it might be a few years down the road, but I think it will be impactful.
Yeah. So what is one area you think you are absolutely crushing it as a dad?
Man, this might be a better question for my wife. I'm not sure. Like anything.
No, it's time to toot your own horn. Let's hear it.
Yeah. It's always hard to write our own eval and fit rep and stuff in the military, isn't it? So I think right now, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, is one of the things I'm most proud of in the last year is saying yes to my children when they desired my time, right? And that might seem like very simple and stuff, but certainly, as I mentioned earlier, it was hard in England even at times, because I get home from my work, I was trying to build this business. A lot of that was in the evening, and mentally I was thinking I was present with them. My desk was in the corner of the living room, and they're in the same room. I'm like, oh yeah, we're spending time together, but it wasn't quality present time, right? And so, in the last year, all through that, calendar planning and everything like that, right now, I really, really desire to say yes when they ask for my time. And there are some instances in which they ask, and I'm like, man, I really wanted to do X right now, or I have 1,000 things to do. And I think for the most part, I've been good at pausing and just kind of, not, yeah, in a little bit or whatever. It's like, yes, we can go do that right now. And, sometimes it's only 15 minutes, whatever they ask me to do. Sometimes literally 15 minutes later, they've, the neighborhood kids or whoever are here, and they've shifted gears and doing something else. But I just think that it was very easy for me to say, yeah, I'll do that in a little bit before. And then by the time I was done, like, okay, they've done, I almost celebrate that they'd found something else to do, so that I could continue to work. And so I think that mental shift for me to be, to say yes 90+% of the time, when I can, has, something I think is important that I'm doing pretty well at the moment.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's a extremely difficult thing to do, especially when you're the type of person who's wanting to be productive and get your business done and go through all the stuff. And, so what kind of tips would you give a dad out there that is struggling with that, to help them kind of ease that concern and try to and actually be able to execute and saying yes to their kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think we've talked about a lot of different aspects of that. I think one thing is the mental thing for me. Sometimes it's been like literally like reading some books, going, like the family board meeting, like when you mentally think like, man, I only have 18 years, type of stuff. Or when we look at statistics of the percentage of, how much time we spend in those first 18 years with our kids versus like after that. And like, so often, as we mentioned earlier, as entrepreneurs say, hey, I'm doing this for the family. But by the time this is where we want it to be, they're gone, right? And, out of the house, and so am I really going to get to enjoy whatever it is I'm trying to achieve in the business and stuff with them if they're already gone? And so some of it might, depending on where people are, what they have already done and stuff. I mean, it might be, some education, or reminders from that perspective. Some of it could be, joining, I think, tribes like we're in with other men that are, in my opinion, pretty high performing, individuals that have likely went through some of the same challenges, right? I think that a lot of times we keep it to ourselves or we voice a bit, man, when we're in these tribes, like a lot of these men have gone through or going through similar things. And I think that has been really impactful for me this past 18 months or so as well, because it's not just like you go, read a book and 95% of the time, but it's like, it's this continuous cycle of every week we're having conversations, and we're going to drift, but one of those men are going to make a comment or check us a little bit and kind of bring us back, where, they're going to say like, hey, you said saying yes to your children was a priority.
Mm-hmm.
But why aren't you saying yes to your children? So, as we kind of talk through this, a lot of those, like, joining a tribe with other men might be one of the most important tips I could probably give, because all these other things that I'm thinking about, like designing the calendar and all of that kind of stuff, those are the types of things that, the men can kind of check you on a little bit as you're having those, continuous conversations.